First of all, we need to differentiate, okay? There are two types of widows. There are widows who were married under customary law, and there are widows who were married under statutory law. Now, under customary laws, under most, maybe like 90% of customary laws across Africa, not just in Nigeria, women do not inherit from their husbands. Because a lot of women in Africa are still married under customary law. The
And by
vast majority
customary
of
law,
women
you
are
mean
married.
like traditional wedding? Is that it's so that people can really
Yes.
understand?
Yes. Yes. The traditional wedding. Most customary laws have very, very little protections for a woman married into the tribe or into the family. So when a woman is married under statutory law, however, she is entitled to inherit. The fact that she is entitled to inherit from her husband's estate does not mean that her inheritance is not problematic. And if there is no will, for instance, what a widow can inherit is still limited.
The thing about the will is, I feel in Africa, there's this idea of discussing someone's will when they are alive. Are you cursing me? Are you trying to say you're wishing for me to die? But this is also one
Yeah.
of the challenges
Yeah.
that widows face. So how important
Yeah.
is it for women, for wives to have discussions with their husbands while they're alive about the wills? Is it something that both of them should be aware of, of the content of that will? Do they draw it up together? Like what are some of the ways that women can have discussions about wills with their partners that that does not arouse the idea that this person is wishing you death? And how important is it for women or even family people, men specifically, because we're talking about that, to be able to write up a will, and how can they go about that?
Um, is it important to write a will? It is. However, for women, I actually suggest have that discussion before you even get married. Really, even if it's not a direct discussion, there are some ways that you can approach the subject. For instance, how what happened when the man's father or grandfather died might give you clues as to how that particular family will handle an issue of succession and inheritance. Something else that is important for women going into marriage is to be financially independent. I think it's important for women before they enter marriage to have their own property, and while they're in marriage to also have their own property. So the discussion of a will, even if it does occur, becomes a two-sided discussion.
Let's talk about women who are already in this situation, because now we have widows who have, they're still years, they're fighting with their in-laws for inheritance. What can they do? What legal steps can they do? What ways can they use to, resolve the issue that they're going through? And maybe we can talk about it from two ends, like the customary and then the statutory marriages, people who have been forced, or will I say, who are in two different kind of marriage contracts. How can they navigate the issue of like property snatching or, denial of their inheritance?
You can go to courts, and the problem with going to court is that access to justice is itself an issue. Does the widow have the money? More often than not, the widows are left destitute. The last thing they have money for is a court action. And going to court, even going to the police, costs money. I mean, in Nigeria, you can't even file a complaint without paying the police. So it's that obstacle to the justice system that will get to her. If she's lucky, she might get the support of some women's nonprofit group that has a budget. And every once in a while, we learn of these cases. But I think it's inefficient. It's, we can't just choose one case that comes to us and then we find it out. But another thing I think women should consider, because there have been both case precedent and there's more of an emotional, should I say, openness, is inheritance of daughters. All right. In some tribes in Nigeria, daughters automatically inherit. In the Igbo tribe, we have the Supreme Court case Ukeje versus Ukeje that's finally declared that daughters can inherit from their father's estate. Now, one of the reasons why
So are
There's
you saying that for the past years, for the past centuries and decades, daughters in the Igbo land have been unable to inherit the properties from their
yes,
father?
yes, they have not been considered as entitled to inherit. And then Ukeje
Huh.
versus Ukeje changed this
Tragic.
by the Supreme Court changed this by declaring that daughters do have a right to inherit from their father's estate. That's under customary
Mm.
law.
These conversations, I feel like in the African society, we don't even have them because maybe we don't even know where to begin, to have those conversations. So thank you for igniting that knowledge in us and sparking the desire for us to challenge certain societal norms that continue to hold women hostage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.